Hey folks, it's Ben. Today we're going to be doing a water pump change on a 1999 Chevy S-10. Okay, I've undone the battery. Next thing to do is drain the radiator. And you see that little blue twist there? That's actually a drain on the radiator, and it goes to a hose that actually goes to the bottom of the vehicle. So we'll place a bucket underneath there. We'll turn it and hopefully drain our radiator. And you can see the coolant coming out. That little drain was a little tough, but I just used some water pump pliers to get in there. I can hear it siphoning out of the tank, so that little tank is now dry. I'll open up this one, and we'll let all the water come out of the radiator. The upper radiator shroud consists of pretty much, I think, 7 bolts. 2 on each side down below, so we've got our long extension for that. These 3 up here, we have to undo a transfer case or front axle ventilation, and that should be it. I had this upper radiator shroud off about 3 years ago when I removed the fan. Because I live in Maine, this truck doesn't have air conditioning, it doesn't need a fan. A lot of my videos now feature my engagement band. It's one of the reasons why I'm moving to Alberta. That's where my fiance lives. And I gotta get these vehicles ready to go up to Canada. Pop off this little breather here. Just tuck that away. Should be free to come up. Before I undo the drive belt, what I'm going to do is break these nuts on the water pump, break them free anyway, and hopefully the belt will give us a little bit more tension on that, so I don't have to use a pry bar. There's one. There's 2. So all 4 nuts are now free. Now we're going to undo the belt. Undoing the belt's easy. Just take a 3/8" ratchet just to square it. Should fit right in a hole here on the tensioner. And as if you were tightening, just undo the tension, pop it off one of these pulleys, and then you can let it go. You can work the belt out, and then we'll keep taking off the pulley. Now that I got my nuts out, this actually just slides right off. There's no rust or anything on this. Very cool. We'll need to reuse this and the bolts. You'll notice on our new pump here, there's a little hole right here, and that's a seepage hole. As the seals wear out in this pump, coolant will start coming out of here to indicate that the pump is starting to wear out. As you can see, the pump on our truck, it's very free turning, and our little seepage hole here, as you can see, it's very wet. And in fact, even all over the harmonic balancer, it's wet from where it's been dripping all the time. Next on the agenda, we've got hoses. We have 3 of them. We've got our heater core hoses here and a radiator hose. Now these are lazy man clamps, which I call them. They're also kind of easy to get out if you've got access to them. You pretty much just squeeze and slide them on up. Getting these hoses off will be another thing. They've been here for a while, no doubt. And we're going to leak coolant everywhere, by the way. There's one. Can't quite get this hose off, so we're just going to wait till we pull the pump off the block. So next one is this large lower on here, and this is definitely going to be a wet one. Looks like it's freed up now. I should be able to just pull it down and off. Interestingly enough, the water pump bolts are 14, so I don't need to come out too far, so I'll just use 2 small extensions. And our ratchet is ready to pop these babies free. There's 1. There's 2. And there are only 4 bolts holding the water pump on, and they're on either side of the inlet outlet of the pump. These are a sealed bolt. They need sealant on them, although this one isn't wet. This one is very wet. This is our one that definitely needs to be sealed. In theory, while spilling water everywhere, I can grab this thing and pop it off. There we go. Move it out a little bit and take my hose out. There. Here's our pump. Now that the pump is free, I've just got to make sure that those pump surfaces are nice and clean. I'm going to use a razor blade for that because it is an iron block and there's one on each side. So we'll clean those up and then we'll get ready for installation. So here is our worn pump with lots of coolant coming out of that weep hole right there. This is our new remanufactured pump from Napa. Comes with 2 new gaskets. We've got our bolts here. I'm going to take these to the bench grinder, clear off all that old sealant there. I'm also going to put a little bit of sealant around these gaskets. We're just going to mount it up and put it back in. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, so I've got my pump, which is actually quite cold right now. My threads with sealant on them and my gaskets there with a little bit of tack seal on them. Should be able to bring them in and start on these threads a little bit. Before I go too hog wild with these, I'm going to double check to make sure my gaskets are in place. And they had little tabs on them. And this one's in place, so we got most of our bolts started. Now just to tighten them up. And that's the 4th one. These are going to about 30 foot-pounds, so they're not very tight at all. So we've got the 4 snugged up. Next step we're going to do is we're going to reattach our hoses. So let's do that. Okay, the base is on. Next we have that little upper one here. These things are always easier to get on than they are off, so no big deal. Grab this little clamp right here. Squeeze it as tight as I can. Just pretty much follow where the old band used to be. We're good there. Squish this guy back on. And this clip back down to where it used to be. And it's tight. So now we've got all our connections made to our water pump. Now we've got to put the pulley on. Our pulley's already nice and clean. Mount it up to the water pump. I put a little bit of anti-seize on each bolt here. We'll put one through and kind of line it up. We'll return this pulley here, which I've taken off for a little bit easier access for things to see and for the camera to view in. There. Now to retighten or torque these down a little bit. They don't need to be super tight. Just enough so that this pulley doesn't go anywhere. For ease of access, it's probably going to be easier to close the drain pepcock now. Once again, a little anti-seize goes a long way in terms of keeping bolts happy and a little bit more rust-free. This car originally came with Cool, which is a GM product. I'm going to be using a Prestone all makes all models because I don't like Cool, but I'm not going to be changing out the entire cooling system. I'm just pretty much changing the pump. It's undiluted, so we have to pretty much mix it 50-50. So I'm going to take this water jug here, which is 1 gallon, fill it approximately half full, and then per my fiance, who's in the water business, spring water will be fine. I don't like to use the tap water here because it's really bad. It's got a lot of dissolved solids in it and stuff. So half a bottle in here, then we can mix them up to be both 50-50, and we'll put this back in the system. After some stirring, let's fill the system and hope we don't hear anything leaking. It's going to take a bit for the system to get the bubbles out and stuff. Once we get it so it stays relatively level, then we'll start the truck up and start working out some bubbles. We need the thermostat to open up so we can circulate water and get all the air out. Also, while you're idling, check for leaks. The truck's now up to temperature, the heater core is on. It's no longer going down, in fact the level's coming up a little bit because the car's getting hotter, so I'm going to fill up the tank over here as best I can. I'm not going to overfill it actually because I know there's still air pockets in the system. But that's it, we've changed the water pump in our '99 Chevy S-10.